Hello and welcome to CIMA Australia's exam preparation series. This is a short film about taking case study exams, and it's applicable to all three levels. And it's based on the Pearson VUE tutorial for case study exams, which you should download and review very carefully. So what I'm going to do in this short film is just go through some screenshots of the case study tutorial, but I'm going to point out some things that might be of importance to you in your preparation for this case study exams. So the tutorial, as it says here, is designed to assist you with navigating through CIMA's case study exams. So obviously you should download it and practice, and there are several things that you need to practice. It uses example items and scenarios to show the different elements of the test and to enable you to familiarize yourself with test functionality. And I'll come back to that repeatedly. All of the case study exams are going to be 3 hours long, and they're going to be made up of a number of sections. And each section is going to be timed, and within each section there will be one or more tasks for you to complete, which will be in the form of written responses. So when we're looking at the case study, we've got to practice writing written responses, and each case study will have different types of responses, and we'll look at some of those shortly. You'll be asked to read some information which may be presented in different forms. It might be emails, it might be articles from newspapers, it might be minutes of meetings. This is the unseen material. We've no idea what you might be presented with. The information will be available for you to access during your exams, either on the screen or via a reference material button, which we'll look at in a moment. Please ensure you read all the information presented before making your response. Once you leave each section, you won't be able to return to that section. It's therefore important that you complete all your work in a section before you move on. So if we look at the general screen, there's going to be your candidate name here, a scratch pad, a calculator, time remaining. Might be some tables and formulas, and if you want to go to the next screen, we can click on next. So what you're going to be asked to do is to actually write written response questions. And so you're going to have a little scratch pad here, and you're going to have to type in your answer here directly into this thing. So if you're not very comfortable with typing things, typing reports, then you should practice, because not only are you going to be judged on the quality of your answers, but also the layout, the spelling, the structure, etc. So a written response question below is an example of the box where you will type your answer. It might be formatted as a report or an email. So again, we need to be clear when we ask to do a report, how is it we're going to write? And in some of the other films, we'll give some examples of this. Or is it an email? Now, here's a typical question that you might be asked, and it's important to look at this sort of question. Describe the impact of the announcement on X Limited share price. So these are very generalized questions. They're not questions that are specific. Calculate the net present value of something. They're asking you to describe the impact. So what that means is that you've got to work out, how much time can I spend on this? I've got some remaining time here, so let's say you've got 30 minutes for this section. How many questions have you got in the section? Let's say you've got 2. So it may be that you've got to spend 15 minutes on this one and 15 minutes on the next one. So timing is important. The next thing that's important is to look at the verbs, and we'll look at that in each individual case study film that we do. Describe. So we need to be clear that that's what we're doing. We're not analyzing, we're not evaluating, we're describing. So you need to underline the verb and make sure you respond to that. The impact of the announcement. So The impact, where will you find this information? It could be in the additional materials. It could be in the pre-seen materials. I don't know. So what you've got to do is to work out your answer and type it directly into here. Now, if you're familiar, for example, with using Microsoft Word as your word processing tool, you'll notice that there are very few functions here. So there's just bold, italics, and underline. By highlighting the text in the box when you type your answer, you can perform several functions. So once you've typed in this box, you have to highlight the text that you want to cut. You have to highlight the text that you want to copy. You have to highlight the text that you want to paste. If you have some information in here and you want to copy it and use it again, you have to highlight it, copy, go to the place where you want to use it, and click paste. Undo will undo the last action. Redo. Undo, redo. And here we have bold, italics, and underline. So it's a very limited set of functions, and that's what you have to use. So it may be a good idea for you to go to the CIMA Pearson VUE tutorial and practice writing some, practice using these functions. Here's an email response question. So maybe you're going to be asked to write an email. So again, this is a box where you're going to type your answer, and you're asked to format it as an email, and the functionality is very similar. Write an email to Sarah Harris on the current recruitment strategy for XY. So what we need to do is to address this correctly. We need to put a subject. It might be recruitment. It might be current recruitment strategy. We need to put a date. Use the date of the exam. That would be fine. And then you need to write an email. Now, when you're writing an email, of course, you have to consider what is your position and what is the position of the person you're writing to. Now, presumably in your pre-seen material or your additional material, your supplemental material, who Sarah Harris is will be explained to you. So if Sarah Harris is the Director of Human Resources, then maybe your language that you're writing might be different than if Sarah Harris was a peer, maybe somebody on the same level of the organization as you. So you need to consider this. How do you address her? Hello, Sarah. So you need to think about this. And when we look at the case studies for each level, we'll go into this in more detail. So you need to know from what position you're writing, and you need to know from what position the person you're writing to. And you need to write an email. Emails are generally brief, short sentences, and we'll look at some examples in other films. So now let's have a look at this additional material. In your exam, you'll see some buttons. For example, here you can access the pre-seen material that you've already seen 6 weeks before the exam, but there might be some additional material under this section here called reference materials. There might be some reference materials which might be necessary for you to read in order for you to answer the questions. So some tasks will require you to view additional material in order to answer the question. In order to access that material, you need to either click on the reference materials or the pre-seen, and if there is additional information, there will be a reference material button. Once the button is clicked, the information will be presented in a pop-up box, which we'll look at in a moment. Some screens may have more than one screen of additional information, and again, I'll show you that next. To view multiple screens, there are tabs at the top of the window. To move around the screen, left-click, hold down the mouse to resize, and so on. So you need to practice this. If you want to be able to do this, go to the tutorial and practice moving the window around the screen. If you want to move the pre-seen material, how do you do it? It's not possible to copy and paste from the pre-seen or reference material. So you can't just highlight something in the pre-seen and then copy it into your answer. You actually have to type all of your answer directly. So here's an example of some additional material. You can see here that Exhibit 1 and Exhibit 2, so there might be any number of tabs here. And if you want to see Exhibit 1, obviously just click the tab. So Exhibit 2, as you can see, is an organization chart, And this may help you if you're to identify various people or their place in an organization. So this material may hold clues to what you need to answer. It may also have some distractors. So you've got to be careful that you keep watch on the time when you're looking at this additional material. There may also be some questions with additional PDF information. So some questions provide additional information as a PDF document. Now PDFs are searchable. So if you want to see a PDF document, you maybe click on the pre-scene, which might be a PDF document. So you might select which one you're looking at, click on the pre-scene, and to search for some information, click in the search box in the upper left-hand corner and type in your search item, and the results will appear underneath. So this might be very useful if you've got a document and you want to find, for example, the question is asking about market share. You might be able to go to a PDF and find the references for the search criteria. In order to jump to the area in PDF, when you see the search things, click on one of the results and the information will be highlighted in a PDF. So again, if you're not familiar with searching in PDF documents, download Acrobat Reader and practice searching. It's a very useful tool to find something quickly. Don't wait until the exam to find out how to do it, because you could be taking up valuable time. So preparation here is the important thing. Your exam has a scratch pad, which can be accessed by obviously clicking the scratch pad button here. The scratch pad allows you to create notes, and you can use this in addition to the erasable whiteboard. So you'll have in your exam an erasable whiteboard which you'll be supplied with in the test center. Notes written in the scratch pad won't be recorded, so it literally is a scratch pad. Notes written in the scratch pad will not be retained at the end of the exam, and no marks will be awarded for any content in the scratch pad. Any content typed in the scratch pad will be retained throughout the exam unless you delete it. So what we're going to see in a moment is that you've got sections, and once you leave one section you can't go back. But the scratch pad notes will remain for the whole of the exam. You can cut and paste within the scratch pad window, but not from the scratch pad to the answer box. So you can do things in the scratch pad, but you can't highlight something in the scratch pad, copy and paste as you would in a document, for example. So if you want to open the scratch pad, obviously click here, and you can move the scratch pad around the screen by using your left mouse button and moving it. So again, perhaps you should go to the tutorial and practice doing this. Don't wait until the exam and then find out you don't know how to do it. Also, there's a calculator. I mentioned this in the first film. Again, you're not going to be asked to do major calculations, but you may be asked to do some calculations to confirm or test something. So again, you need to be familiar with a calculator and practice using it before the exam. Each of the sections of the exam will be timed, and you will be able to see the time remaining up here in the right hand corner. Beware that sections within the case study may have different times allocated to them. So if you've got a 3-hour exam and you've got 3 sections, it may not be that each section will be 60 minutes. You might have 45 minutes in the first section, 75 minutes in the second section, and 60 minutes in the third. So you've got to be careful about managing your time. When you get to 5 minutes remaining, you'll see a warning. You have 5 minutes remaining, and at the end of that 5 minutes, you'll receive the following message. And if you run out of time on the section, you won't be able to review your work, and you will be automatically moved on to the next section. So perhaps when you see this 5-minute warning, if you haven't already become aware that you've got 5 minutes, it may be important for you to stop and go back and look, because once that 5 minutes is gone, you're going to be moved on to the next section and you will not be able to go back to it. So this is the most important, I think, element of this tutorial. The case study is going to be given in sections, and there's going to be for each section introductory material, which will help you to develop your response. And that introductory material, as we've said before, may be in the form of newspaper article, minutes of meetings, reports, emails. And then you're going to be given a number of tasks. Maybe one task, maybe two tasks, maybe three tasks. The task may take the form, for example, of writing a report, writing an email, creating a briefing note. So you're not going to be asked to do lots of calculations, but you might need to do some calculations to enable you to write a report, for example. As you leave each section, you'll be given a warning message. The warning message, as we've just seen, will tell you you're leaving this section. You're not going to be able to change your mind once you've left it. Once you've left the section, you will not be able to return to it. And at the end of the exam, you will not be able to review your responses. So before you close each section, make sure you're happy with the response to each task before moving on in the test. Usually there's going to be 3 sections. It doesn't necessarily follow that there's going to be a question from each pillar. I don't think it's going to be that in, let's say, the operational level, section 1 will be E1, section 2 P1, section 3 F1. These questions that you're going to be asked will mix up those pillars, and so I don't think you can rely on just having one question here. It's going to be cross-functional. So let's say we've opened section 1. The section will tell you will now be presented with 3 questions or to simulate the case study exam. This is 3 questions that we've got in the tutorial. The first 2 screens exist in one section where you have 2 tasks to complete. Once you have completed these 2 tasks, if you move on to the next session, you will receive a warning message. Once you've moved on, you'll not be able to return. And so you might get a task: prepare notes for your meeting with the finance director. So this is a very open-ended thing here. It's not asking you to give a closed answer. It's asking you very open questions. What notes are you going to have for your meeting with the finance director? So again, to answer this, you need to consider what's your position, and that will depend on the level. What is the meeting going to be about? And what sort of things will you need to discuss with a finance director? And obviously that's going to come from the pre-CIMA material and the additional material. So you might get a task that says, for example, respond to Emily Walker on the recent press reports about industrial relations in WFY. So again, you need to understand who is Emily Walker. You need to respond. So that word respond tells me that Emily Walker has already maybe sent you some information. You need to refer to the recent press reports, and you need to limit your response to industrial relations in WFY. Again, who are you addressing it to? What is the subject? In this case, recruitment. Probably not. This subject looks wrong. Recent press reports or something like that, and a date. When we're looking at the case studies for each level, we'll look at individual responses to things like emails. So when you get to the end of a section, you'll see an end section message which reads something like this: you have chosen to end the current section but have 2 incomplete questions. Well, this is just me doing the test. But if you click yes, you will not be able to return to this section. Are you sure you want to end? And if you click yes, it's going to ask you for a confirmation. Are you sure you want to do it? So this is the point of no going back. Please confirm that you want to end this section. If you click yes, you'll not be able to return to this section and answer the 2 questions you've not completed. Are you sure? Once you click that, that's it. There's no way that you can go back, so be sure that you really have finished before you confirm. And when you've confirmed, you'll be moved on to the next section, and you cannot go back and see your previous responses. And there's a new question. Describe the impact of the announcement on X Limited share price. Describe impact, share price, announcement. So we'll look at some of these questions in the next set of films. When you come to the end of each of the sections, you'll get to the case study exit, and this is the final screen in the case study tutorial. And once you select next in the bottom right hand corner, you will have finished the exam. As we've seen before, you will not be given the opportunity to go back and review your exam. So that's all for this review of the Pearson VUE tutorial. It's important that you look at that very carefully. You practice typing in, you practice using the calculator, you practice opening up the additional material, you practice timing yourself. And as I've said several times during this film, don't wait until the exam to try these things out. Make sure you're really prepared with the technology. You also need to be prepared with the material, the syllabus, but it's straightforward. You can be prepared with the technology well before. So that's all for me for this short film, and I'll talk to you in the case study films. So it's bye for now.